What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel today. It's kind of a bit of a different video. It's one that I wish we didn't have to make. We're talking about my garage active, balls to the wall SEMA car that I had done through Driver Motorsports. I want to first start by taking the responsibility that is mine. And I am about $400,000 into this car with Driver Motorsport. What I should have done is, with this much money on the line, I should have been out there. I didn't once go out to Driver Motorsports to go check up on the progress, to go make sure what they were telling me was correct. The thing about it is I trusted them. I thought they were my friends. I really looked up to a bunch of the guys. That was my fault. I should have been out there. I should have gone out there more. One of the main reasons I feel like this video needs to be made is I have put my stamp of approval on that shop. I've sent so many people there personally, and not just that, how much promotion they got from putting together a beautiful car because, as my friend Sam put it, the car looks amazing, but that's as far as it goes because that's really what it is. And it looked great at SEMA, but by the time it got to me, it had issues that just don't make any sense. I've got notes here because there's a lot going on up here. We got this car about a year ago, and it's just been sitting because I haven't had the chance mentally to really jump into it. Sheldon owns a business, and he's a father, so working with his schedule, working with our schedule has just taken more time than it's worth. And why wait a year to put out this video? With my Midnight Purple 2 R34, I don't really want to get into what the issue is, but if it goes there, we'll for sure go there. We found a pretty big issue with that car, and I called the tech that did the work, and I was probably a bit more aggressive than I should have been because it was a pretty serious issue. And because of that call, I had a second call with somebody there to try to smooth things over, and that call went really, really well. I thought things were going to go back to normal at that point, but I got an email from the owner, and he doubled my in-shop rate because I brought something to them. I didn't put it on the internet, which I totally could have done, which I'm doing right now. He doubled my in-shop rate because I found an issue. Oh, and he threatened me that he was going to start charging me storage of my car while they were working on it. It was like $100 a day or something stupid. I'll have to check the email. And one other thing, everything we're talking about in this video today, we have screenshots with the folks over at Driver Motorsports. We've got receipts, we've got videos, we've got all of this. And the reason why is we want to be straight up about this. There are problems with this car that we are not going to talk about because we don't have screenshots, we don't have receipts, we've had the car for a year. Although the car has only sat for a year, we're not going to talk about those issues. But just know what we talk about, we've got screenshots, receipts, and if the time comes to where we need to put that out, we'll put that out. But I don't think we're going to get there because I don't want this to drag on forever because it's already been a year. So I have spent roughly $1 million, give or take, with Driver Motorsports. And at one point, I loaned them $100,000 because they had cars stuck at port that they needed money for. And the loan was supposed to be paid back really quick, and it was paid back in some weird way. We're not going to get into that. But I received this car. Keep in mind, I spent like $1 million with them, and I loaned them $100,000, and this is the way I was treated. So this car was originally supposed to be at SEMA 2020, but a global pandemic happened, and it obviously didn't happen. Then I believe it was supposed to be at SEMA 21, but we ended up taking my Midnight Purple 2 car there with Driver Motorsports. And keep in mind, the basic build of this car didn't really change since 2021. Pretty much everything that is on this car was purchased in 2019, 2020, and 21. I didn't get this car until Mother's Day of 2023. I knew that it wasn't going to be finished, but we thought what it needed was small things. When it turned out, it was quite a bit more. The transporter arrived. Driver Motorsports said the guy stalled it a bunch getting it on the trailer, said it was really hard to drive. we'll get into the engine issues and the tune later. But basically, the car came off the trailer, I pulled it into my driveway, and it died. And it never ran after that. It was raining and they didn't make it so the windows could go up and down. So it was sitting out in my driveway with the windows down, unable to start until Mark and Sam could come up and help me push it into the driveway. But when it arrived, the rib nuts had fallen out of the side skirts on one side, and the side skirt was laying on the ground. And that caused the fender in the back to actually crack. So have you ever seen somebody put rib nuts in fiberglass before?
No, I wouldn't. There's no structure there, so they just pull out. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
The bolts holding on the steering wheel, they had basically almost all fallen out, so it was barely hanging on. So I had to find the bolts and screw them all in. They didn't clearance the hood, so there's stuff that needs to be repainted under the hood because it just sat and rubbed while it was in transport, which is just stupid. Oh, this is one of my favorite things. They messed up the wheels of the car, and I messaged them right as it was happening, and I said, hey, the wheels have pretty serious issues with them. Is that a you guys thing, or is that a transporter thing? They said it was a transporter thing. The transporter was still there, and he forwarded me all the pictures that showed that the wheels were messed up before it got on the trailer. So it wasn't them. So if you're transporting vehicles from Driver Motorsports, just know that if there's anything wrong, that you're catching the finger for that. The air suspension was leaking so bad that it wouldn't stay up. It just kept going down so bad that we actually just pulled it out of the car. There's too much complexity with the car already. So we pulled like a $12,000 Tiedemann air suspension out because I don't want to deal with it. And on top of that, the way that they ran power to the compressors, it wasn't enough power. So we couldn't get the compressors to come on and off. So we would have to take an air compressor with us to shows so we could manually put air in the tank to air the car up. Just can't believe that's a thing. They didn't clearance the trunk. So when the trunk comes down, it cut into the Alcantara in the trunk, which is, really cool. I'm missing quite a few parts that I was invoiced for, one of them being a garage active gurney flap, which is not cheap at all. When we got the car, it wouldn't go into first gear. We could get it to go into what we think is second, but the IC7 reads the wrong gear, so we're not sure. The clutch was set up terribly. The alignment, they didn't even do like a garage alignment. When we were loading the car, we would have to constantly readjust because it wouldn't go straight because it was crab walking because the alignment was so far out of whack. They didn't hook up the AC, the power steering doesn't work, the power brakes don't work, they didn't set up the nitrous. The blinkers and reverse lights don't work. The windows, they don't go up and down. To get into to pop the hood, they ran this cable, so you had to reach in to pop the hood. Just lazy, right? Let's see. They put a plastic 3D printed part right here. Here's the catch can. So they put like a 2-to-1 3D printed plastic part right here. So it obviously melted. They told me several times that it was tuned. There are several interviews out there of them talking about how they tuned the car. When the car arrived to me, they had told me we didn't tune the car. It's just got a base map on it. And when we got the base, we pulled the tune. I sent it to my tuner. a few other tuners that I know, and they all said this is the worst tune they have ever seen. It has, is it 1700? Yeah, so it's got 1700 cc injectors in it, and in the tune it said that it had 750 cc injectors. So it was really bad.
Also, it was pulling 40% fuel out of the 6-cylinder.
Oh, and it was pulling 40% of the fuel out of the 6-cylinder. So we'll get into, Sheldon will get into the issues with the motor. The paint is cracked next to the header due to heat. You know, you could have put heat stuff there. You know that that's going to happen. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to let him talk about the wiring, but I think my favorite thing they did of the wiring was, where did they run the fuel pump?
Oh, the power for the fuel pump was just off of an amp from the trunk. So amp has power, it has a post. Yeah, stereo amp. It was just like a 18-inch wire from the post of the power to the amp to the fuel pump. And
So it was coming off of the actual amp.
Yeah, to the fuel pump, routed through the trunk, and then obviously switching ground. But we haven't got into it that far. But with an R5 Nexus, it's a PDM, right? But under the glove box, there's a series of relays, which is strange to me. But we haven't really got into that yet.
Yeah, this is going to be like a 10 series video of us fixing this car. So I'm going to have Sheldon talk about when we tried to start it at the shop and it wouldn't start. What was going on with it?
Yeah, so I got there and you guys had trouble starting the car. We had just towed it to the bus shop. And
Oh, keep in mind, we only tried to start it a few times because we weren't confident
well,
in
the battery
build.
was dying.
Yeah, battery was.
From the transport guy trying to get it off the trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got there and it didn't seem like it had fuel. It was just cranking with no kick at all. And so plug it in, just kind of start looking at stuff, open the trunk, and there's fuel everywhere. And we're like, oh, that's weird. So I look at the top of the Nuke Performance surge tank, and it's like, oh, the fittings are loose. So I like get an Allen wrench and I go to tighten them, and they're all tight. So take them off, and they're like an ORB Boss, O-ring Boss, and there's just no O-rings in any of them. So like, and keep in mind, this car went to SEMA, and they were starting it there. So like, you're pouring fuel out in your trunk at SEMA.
Yeah, and it died at SEMA, and they said it was out of gas, but at this point, I don't believe anything they say. It died, so I drove it like 100 feet at SEMA, and then it just died, and we had to be the push out of SEMA crew. So Mark messaged one of the guys over at Driver Motorsports and said, hey, why are there no O-rings in here? And they said, Nuke assembled it, and they didn't put any O-rings in it, so we didn't put O-rings in it. We've got screenshots with this conversation. So Nuke, just know, if there's an issue, it's your fault, even though I feel like every mechanic out there knows if there's an O-ring here, go get an O-ring.
Yeah. Yeah, so luckily for us, I contacted them asking for the O-rings because I'm sure they were in the box and they just weren't installed.
Yeah.
And even if they weren't, you would never have sent a car out the door this way. Fuel leak's a dangerous thing. So Nuke luckily sent us like an entire top to the surge tank with all the fittings, all the O-rings, everything. They apologized even though they probably didn't need to. But yeah, so that was good on them.
Yeah, shout out Nuke.
Yeah, so then they've just got the like aluminum hard lines on the fuel rail, and those were leaking as well. Just fuel leaks aren't good in general.
No, especially on a $400,000 car that took 4 years to build. 4 years, guys. Will you take a minute to talk about the wiring situation?
Yeah, so any car like this, the best outcome in the wiring is before you even get started, you plan it out. I'm assuming, because I've seen this happen, many people have, but when you have a tight deadline, you just start running wires. It's poorly planned. There's a lot of evidence that they got things going and then needed powers or grounds for certain things, and so they just started jamming powers and grounds in other places. That might explain the series of relays in the glove box. We have some pictures and we can put them in here.
Yeah, they're going to be playing on the screen right now. So.
Yeah, so like extremely large gauge wire going into a DT connector, not a DTP, and there's not enough room for the physical wire, so it's just like cut down or bent or jammed in there. Everything is like, none of it's Tef seal or covered well. It's just poorly planned. It's hard to service. There's a series of ground wires that come from all over the place. Some of the wiring for the power steering pump, the air compressor is just like huge gauge sub wire ran through the frame rail to like a huge lug with a huge heat shrink, and it's just chafing on the sheet metal and just not what you would expect from a car of this caliber. Or
yeah, just
a
like
car.
in the price range, right? Like this is like,
yeah,
that's like garage
we're
built
not playing
stuff.
that game.
Yeah.
So
Something else that's funny too is there were actual like grounds where all the wires were ran to like a stud, and there was no nut on there holding it down. So you'll see on the screen right now, it's just wires just hanging out. So I know I've kind of talked about, that we tried to start it. So basically, we got the car into my garage, and the next day, Mark and my dad and Sam came up to the house, and we attempted to start it again to get it into the trailer. We couldn't get it to start, so we just pushed it. We got it down to the shop. We attempted to start it again, and then we just decided we need my tuner and Sheldon down here so that we can make sure we're not hurting the motor, because we want everything documented, right? Because the main reason I did everything with Driver Motorsports is because it's one finger to point. Like, they did the work, they contracted the transporter, they contracted the person that did the machine work, they assembled the motor, they installed everything, they did the wiring, they did all of this. I didn't do any of it. All that I did was basically gave them a blank check and said, make me the best R32 you can make. So we get it to the shop, and we tried to get it started, and it made like a weird sound. It was just weird sounding. And I don't think the battery had enough juice for us to do a compression test, because we were going to do a compression test, but we couldn't. So we decided to scope the pistons or scope the cylinders. And so when we scoped the cylinders, what did we see?
yeah, well, what led us to that was cranking with low voltage is what we initially thought, but then once we had good voltage, it's cranking as if it had no compression. So that led us to like, we should probably look at the cylinders. So pulled the plugs, scoped them. I mean, we're talking about a brand new engine, but
Yeah, 0 miles. This car's been driven 0 miles.
yeah, the top of the pistons, like, it's been extremely hot. They look like they have 80,000 miles. They're black. And then as you move down the line, you could see very clear scoring on the walls. We can only make some like educated guesses, but my guess is that the extreme amount of fuel going through the cylinder and cranking maybe washed the cylinders. I think we ended up putting oil in the cylinders and compression testing it and seeing decent numbers, but not what you would expect from an engine that's been ran up on the dyno.
Yeah, so I sent pictures that are on the screen right now. of the cylinders to the Driver Motorsports guy, and he said the car's only been driven out of the in and out of the showroom. My fear is that the transporter revving it to get it on the trailer is what caused this issue. Car has not been tuned other than enough to get it to move around safely below 3,000 RPM. So they're saying the pitting that you see on the screen, the scrapes on the side of the cylinder walls, that was due to a transporter revving the car to try to get it on the transport. There were some issues with the timing belt and stuff in that area. So what was going on with that?
Yeah, so I guess I could use Jeff as an example of this, how I got to what we... So Brad purchased another car from a guy, Jeff Shimmer, who had them build him a car that he went through a similar situation, and we ended up with the car, and I got it, and initially the timing, the exhaust cam was off. Two teeth, and then they had just rotated the adjustable cam gear to get it to run. So that was in the back of my mind when this car showed up. Yeah, that being in the back of my mind, looking at this car, it's cranking, it's got funny, it's cranking like there's no compression. Everybody's heard that before. So it's like, well, let's like do the compression test numbers were low also, so let's look at the timing. Initially, you can, once you take off the top cover, you can see the tensioner spring. It's just like on Jeff, the spring's backwards, and the spring only assists when you're setting up the belt, but that's like an indication that something wasn't done right.
And you can see right here, the spring was bent.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be bent.
Yeah, it's bent. So Jeff, same thing. So you can only assume that the same person that put Jeff's cylinder head on, put this one on, and then you start worrying about like the job after that. So then it was like, okay, break the car down, check timing. This timing belt was shredded on one end. I don't know why.
Because it's only revved to 3,000 RPM and been
Right.
in and out of the shop.
Yeah.
Not dynoed.
So a little odd. And then, so it's like you get down, you take it all down, and on this car, that's quite a job because of the tight fitment, but timing belt's shredded, and then it's off a tooth. RB32 stuff's a little different just because of the added teeth to the belt, but you can look online and count the teeth and get an easy answer for that. So it was off, which is probably why we cranking low compression seemed strange. And then we kind of, after scoping the cylinder, seeing that, we kind of just
Stopped.
needed to recoup, and that was a year ago.
Yep. So Herman from PRP is working with us to try to get this car up and running. And one of the main reasons why we're working with PRP on pretty much everything is because I do not want them to say we did this. So we filmed the scoping of this. We filmed on a GoPro taking it apart. That's all like time stamped and date stamped, so you can see when all this was done, so that this didn't just happen. This happened like a year ago when we received the car. Because my biggest fear was that they were going to say, he did this, when I simply didn't do this. I mean, it's got a Hollinger 6-speed sequential in it. It's got an RB30 stroked with 3.2. We partnered with Vibrant on it. We partnered with PRP on it. We partnered with Nitto on this car. We partnered with Garage Active on this car. And I wanted to be out driving this car. And I'm just kind of worried that this motor is done, like that we have to get a whole new motor for it. But you know, I guess the good thing about that is we're working with Platinum Racing Products, and they've got some pretty good engines that I think I'd love to put in this car. But at the end of the day, I just want this car to drive. I just want to drive it. I don't know that I even want this car anymore, though. It's been a real big sense of heartache. When all of this initially went down, when the car got here, you can ask anybody around me. It like killed my love for cars for a year, basically until the white R34 showed up. I was depressed. I was sad. Like, I apologize to every single person that I talked to that I beat their ears up about this car, because I was so proud of this car. You know, 4 years and $400,000 is a lot of time and a lot of money to get a product like this. I will say that working with Ed over at Driver Motorsports to get this car here was a good experience. He was upfront with me. Any issues that were with this car, he documented them and sent it over. So thank you, Ed. I do think that you're one of the good ones over there. Is there anything you would like to say in closing?
I would like to add that Devin, who did the fabrication on this car, the fabrication on this car is well done. The titanium is beautiful, the intercooler piping is beautiful, the end tanks, the manifold, it was well done. But just, and so he has like a super bright future. Like, he's very talented and he's young. I think he's like 20.
I mean, he was like 19 years old when he did the welds on my purple R34.
That stuff is done really well and planned out well, but that is 50% of a build. The rest of it is wiring and planning and seeing it to the end. I think often shops, they get to where they see the end of a build and they kind of know the end of the money's coming and they lose, or maybe they blew up the internet and got what, you know?
Yeah,
got
I mean,
the recognition they were looking for, but it is always the last 10% of a build that defines the car, and I think that's where this one got a little short.
if you want to see where this car goes next, please like, comment, subscribe. If you've got a similar story with Driver Motorsports or any other shop, please drop it in the comments. People need to know. I'm a really nice guy. I try not to get involved with drama. I don't want to be doing this right now, but I think it's essential that we do. One last thing that I forgot to mention in the video. I did attempt to get all of this resolved with Driver Motorsports. I spoke with the techs over there that I work with, and the one is no longer there, but he told me that from the top, they said that they're done with me. They're done with the car. They're not moving forward with any help or anything like that. What I got was what I got. So that's where we're at. Like, comment, subscribe, and watch as this car comes back together. So thank you.